Somebody went berry picking in the rain.
Time for strawberry jam, but I don't have a stove.
Okay, we've washed our berries here, and we are just going to cut them up in little pieces. And I am going to use this batch to make some strawberry jam. And this is going to be an experiment for me because, you know, typically you're going to have a stovetop to make your strawberry jam with. But since I still haven't got my kitchen finished, I don't have my stove installed. I've always had, in this house, there was an electric hookup for a stove. And I prefer a gas range. So, because my house is all electric, I have to install a propane tank because I live out in the country. And because I won't be using that much propane, I need to buy my own tank. And by the time I buy my own tank and get it installed, it's probably going to be close to $1,000, which is okay. But I'm doing my kitchen a little at a time because if any of you have been watching my videos, you know that I live on a very low income. And I prefer to live debt-free, so I'm not going to go out and take out a loan to do my home renovations, nor am I going to put a bunch of it on a credit card and carry credit card debt. This one's a little green on one side. It's going to be okay. I wouldn't make my jam out of all green strawberries, but a little bit of green doesn't hurt anything. I mean, you've got some people that will tell you you can't use anything but perfect fruits. But if you grew up in a frugal household like I did, where nothing goes to waste, and a lot of times it was those imperfect fruits that you use to make your jams and your jellies. So I continue to do that. I mean, if you've been doing it for over 40 or 50 years, you know it's perfectly fine to do that. So I went berry picking this morning in the rain at a berry patch not too terribly far from where I live. And the cold winter that we had this year, combined with the deer and the groundhogs that I've been battling, have actually destroyed a lot of my fruit crop. So this year my fruit is going to be a little scarce. So knowing that, I am more than happy to go out and support a young family that's trying to get started. And that's what I did this morning. It was cold and it was rainy. But you know, when the strawberries or any other fruit is available, now we're going to cut off any parts that have a little bad spot on them. We don't want to put the bad spots in. But when your fruit is ready, you need to go out and harvest it. You can't wait for a nice sunny day to do it. If you don't go out and harvest your berries or whatever other produce that you are harvesting, when it's ready, it's going to get old and it's going to go bad. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to keep cleaning these berries until we get enough to make our jam. Okay, we've got boiling water. We're going to put our lids, our flat lids, is going to go in the boiling water, and they're just going to sit there in the boiling water till we're ready for them. Off camera, I have washed the jars that I'm going to be using. So they should be washed and rinsed very well. They are draining so that they'll be ready once we get our jam cooked. Here I have 5 cups of crushed strawberries. Actually, I used my food processor to do these, just putting it on pulse. You want to leave it nice and chunky because you want bits of fruit since we're doing jam. Normally, I would use a potato masher for that, but it occurred to me that since I started my life over, I have not purchased a potato masher. So we are going to just go with the food processor method this time. Now, also, as I said, my stove has not been hooked up to gas. I mean, it's where it's supposed to be, but it's not hooked up to gas yet. So I'm going to use my Instapot, put it on boil, and that's how I'm going to do my jam today. And hopefully it doesn't boil over too bad. Okay, so let me change the camera around here, and we'll move down to the other part of the counter space. So that is 5 cups of crushed strawberries, and it should be 1 box of Sure Gel pectin. And now we just have to wait for this to boil. You want to bring this to a rolling boil that you can't make stop boiling just by stirring it. Once that comes to a rolling boil, we will add 7 cups of sugar. Okay, you can see we've got a boil going here. Sort of, you can see it. It is starting to roll a little bit. I did have to change my setting. My boil setting on the yogurt setting kept kicking off after a few minutes, so I actually just set this on the soup and broth setting, and I just set my lid on it. Just keep the heat in so that we can actually get a good rolling boil going. The biggest thing is bringing that heat up so you get that good rolling boil. It doesn't have to boil that long. So if you can get it boiling good enough, and we're going to see if this method works. I think I might have pulsed my strawberries a little too much on my food processor. It's the first time I've ever used a food processor. I've always just mashed them before. I guess I could have used a fork if I was desperate, but I usually like my jam with a lot of fruit chunks. But this has got them, but they're small. It's not going to be as good as what I normally make, but that's okay. I'd like this to be boiling a little harder than it is. I'll see if I can hold the camera up so that you can see a little better. I don't know if you can, oh, there. See how we kind of have a rolling boil going? You can see a little bit of foam developing on the top. And it's not really, okay, now it's getting there to where it continues to boil even when I stir it. So the next thing we're going to do is add the sugar. Oops, I'm even splattering my walls up. We're going to hope that once I add the sugar, I don't wind up with it coming clear over the top of this. Once we add the sugar, we're just going to boil for a full minute. Once it comes back up to a rolling boil again. Jam's easy to make, really. Jams and jellies, they're not that hard. They can be a little messy sometimes. Well, they're messy if you're like me. But they're really not that hard to make. Jams and jellies they're nice to have like through the winter if you just want that little extra something. I don't recommend anybody eat a lot of sugar, but just for a once in a while, a special occasion, maybe a holiday, a little bit for a little bit of a roll or a biscuit or something. It's not good for us to eat a lot of sugar. If you can control your cravings, I don't have a problem with somebody having just a little bit. Like I said, I don't hardly eat anything like this at all anymore. I never did eat a lot of it because it just never made me feel very good. But for those people that can tolerate it and just want a little special something, and if you know people that eat this kind of stuff, it makes great gifts at Christmas time and so on. And you don't have to give somebody a big huge container of it. You can just do a little small jar with a little ribbon on it, and it's something special from your kitchen, you know. I used to make jams and jellies every year for Christmas presents, and people always seem to appreciate it, so. Okay, we're waiting for this to come back up to a rolling boil. And as soon as it does, we time it for 1 minute. Look how pretty that is. Isn't that just the prettiest color? We got a pretty good boil going there. That's pretty good. Let's see how it does when I, let's see how it does when I try to stir it. Yeah, it's still rolling boil, so we will time now for 1 minute. See, as easy as this is, you could probably make jams and jellies even if you were living in a van or a car. Or if you were camping someplace. Pull your little camp stove out. Forage for your fruit. Wash it, de-stem it, mash it up. Go to a local grocery, make sure you got pectin and, I think that's about a minute, pectin and sugar, and you're good to go. So we are going to cancel this. Now, I usually go ahead and even while it's still boiling, I start skimming the foam off the top, and I just skim it off and put it in a bowl. I remember when I was a kid, kids I went to school with said, "Oh, that's gross stuff. That's disgusting." There's nothing wrong with it. It's a little foamy, but it actually tastes just like the jam or the jelly that you're making. And I remember when I was a kid, my mom would skim all the foam off the top, put it in a bowl like this, and us kids would grab butter bread and put that top, because see, there's a little bit of the jelly jam underneath there. This is going to wind up looking more like jelly than jam because all those little pieces were cut up a little too much on the pulse cycle. I guess I was a little too overzealous. But yeah, we would just put that on a piece of butter bread. Oh my gosh, it was good. Sweet, but it was good. Such good flavor. So now, while this is still hot, let me get my measuring cup here. While it's still hot, I fill my jars. And I'll do a couple jars that are like a pint size. Just for if I have a really big house full of people and I need to pull out some jams or jellies for a holiday. But mostly I put them in really small jars anymore because, like I said, I really don't eat it. And if I have company, whoops, you just want to fill it up to where you still have a little head space in there. Now we're going to pull out a lid from flat lid. Make sure you take a damp cloth. This jar's getting a little hot. Usually set them down instead of holding them so much. You're going to take a damp cloth and go around the top of the jar. Wipe any of the sticky stuff off. Then you're going to put your flat lid on. And your ring. Ouch. That's hot. And you're going to snug them down good.
Because of the high sugar content and acidic values of jams and jellies, in the past, it was acceptable not to process the canning jars after the jams and jellies were placed in them. And in fact, in many cases, jams and jellies were sealed with nothing more than melted wax poured over the top of the jams and jellies, which would then harden and seal from any air or impurities getting into the jars. And I had for many years been very successful using the inversion method of turning the canning jar upside down to cool for sealing my jams and jellies, as long as the liquids were boiling when they were placed in the jars. However, since the 1990s, it has been advised that jams and jellies should be processed in a boiling water bath in order to protect from molds, any other impurities, or botulism, which is not really common in jams and jellies because of the acidic levels that's in it. But anything not to be consumed right away, it is now recommended that they either be refrigerated, frozen, or processed in a boiling water bath. And that is the method that I now use today, just as an extra precaution. So I would advise you to do your own research and follow your recipe and equipment recommendations. Enjoy your jams and jellies.